Hey man, I'm around 5'10" and 150 pounds. My arms and stuff are kind of skinny, but I have some belly fat and love handle, so I can't see my abs. Do you think I should cut? Mods, banish him to eternal torment. So you're skinny fat. You're skinny, so you should bulk, right? Well, you're also fat, so don't you need a cut? What the hell are you supposed to do? Wait, what if I just recomp to build muscle and lose fat at the same time? I asked myself the same thing during my fat loss journey after I went from obese ogre to skinny fat. Around that point, I got the idea to try to get jacked. I continued to try cutting/recomping through putting fat loss and cardio as my biggest priority while supplementing it with lifting, hoping it would get me a lean, athletic physique. This resulted in me continuing to lose some fat like I wanted, but I just ended up looking skinnier and never got anywhere with looking more jacked. The only reason I cut was because I was so afraid of fat gain, except cutting/recomping wasn't taking me anywhere. My strength barely climbed up across months. You know, I thought it was normal to be lifting the same weights for weeks as a beginner, just as long as I was going to failure, bro. It's much harder and slower to gain muscle than it is to lose fat, so sacrificing my muscle gain by prioritizing fat loss was the worst mistake I could have made. What you need to do as a skinny fat person is to bulk and prioritize muscle building over anything else. I thankfully finally decided to bulk after trying to recomp for months, and once I did that, I was finally able to start gaining noticeable size and strength, hitting my first little gym milestone such as the 135-pound bench, and getting compliments from family and friends. Bulk, bro. You won't become obese. Fat can always just be cut. Muscles can't just be built. Don't be like me or the endless amounts of gym goers who try to speed run an aesthetic physique, trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time while barely having any fat in the first place. A man who chases two rabbits catches neither. I know you still don't want to get fat, so I'll show you how to bulk while minimizing fat gain. A bulk is a dieting strategy where you get to eat more calories than you burn per day to give your body a surplus of calories to allocate towards muscle building. The only drawback is that some of those calories will be used by your body to gain fat, and this is what scares a lot of beginners to death. Oh my god, fat gain? Why would I gain fat when I'm trying to become shredded? So what you want to do is limit your calorie surplus to around 300 to 500 calories. This will give you enough calories to maximize muscle growth while keeping fat gain to a minimum. You don't need to bloat max to gain muscle, but you still need to gain mass. That's just how the game works. The second most important goal for the bulk is your protein goal. Something people fuck up though is thinking that they need to consume as much protein as possible. The other macros don't matter. To get how much protein you truly need, take your body weight, cap it off at 200 pounds, and then multiply it by 0.7 to 1. This is how many grams of protein you need to eat daily. Much more than this won't really benefit you. The issue with focusing only on protein is that it satiates you, meaning it literally makes you less hungry, which can be detrimental if you're struggling to eat enough calories for a bulk. It's also an overrated macro. Carbs are literally your body's primary fuel source, and fats make it easier to bulk and help regulate hormones. They all have their place. In terms of what to actually eat, for a bulk, I recommend having 80% clean foods and 20% junk foods. You can get away with eating mostly junk foods as long as you meet your calorie and protein goal, but you'll probably overall just feel worse, and transitioning to a cut will be much harder, so I don't recommend it. You can also aim for 100% clean foods. If you can do that sustainably for a bulk, that's fine, but junk foods make eating in a calorie surplus easier, and done in moderation will have very little effect on you. Here are my top high protein sources for bulking: Greek yogurt, nuts and nut butters, milk, eggs, beans, cheese, chicken, beef, pork, salmon, shrimp, tuna, nuts, protein powders, and protein bars. Here are my top carb sources for bulking: rice, pasta, bread, tortillas, oatmeal, pretzels, chips, bananas, or other fruits. In terms of fats, you can get a good amount from these foods alone, most notably eggs, nut butters, and cuts of meat. However, using oils in your cooking can very easily increase your calorie intake by a few hundred in case you're struggling with eating enough. Almost all of these foods have helped me consistently reach my protein and calorie goals. Plus, they're just fairly healthy and simple to prepare individually. Some don't even need to be prepared. That's essentially it. All you need to do is find a food from this selection that you enjoy and build a meal plan around them, including one junk food if you wish. Here's a sample day of eating I made. For breakfast, I have to catch the school bus, so I'll eat something quick like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, a banana, and Greek yogurt. And following that, I will usually eat the school lunch, which I make sure has some sort of meat, such as the meatball subs or ground meat. If I'm home, I'll usually eat some carb source such as rice with 2 other protein sources such as chicken and egg. Lastly, for dinner, I will usually eat whatever my mom makes, which varies a lot of the time. The other day, I had spaghetti with sausage and chicken. Between each meal, I might usually have snacks like crackers, pretzels, and bananas, since I get hungry very rapidly. And that's essentially a whole day of eating for me. Don't be afraid of going out with friends to eat out during a bulk, obviously in moderation, but also every time make sure you get at least one protein source such as burgers, fried chicken, steak, etc. That's pretty much it for bulking. To make use of all these proteins and extra calories though, you gotta have a good training plan. Without the training stimulus to build muscle, the fuel is pointless. There are a few important things that must be done in order to optimally build muscle and strength. Priority 1 is progression. If you're able to do at least one more rep or a little more weight on your exercises during a training session, then you are building muscle. Don't let anybody tell you that progression is only for strength and that things like time under tension are what actually matter for muscle building. Size and strength are not these separate things. You have to get stronger to get bigger and vice versa. Getting yourself from 5 push-ups to 30 push-ups will guarantee you a bigger chest, shoulders, and triceps. Priority 2 is intensity. Have you ever tried doing as many push-ups as you can for gym class, and then you get to the point where you just can't lift yourself up anymore? That's called training to failure, when your muscles physically cannot exert enough force to get the weight back up with good form. You need to get to failure, or within 1 to 3 reps of it, in order to convince your body that it should build muscle with each set. The basic premise is that you train, your body recovers, and then builds more muscle, which allows you to add a rep or a few pounds. You have to take the opportunity to add a rep or a few pounds, since sticking to the same weight will start to leave your body less and less challenged until it barely gets a stimulus. If you're just starting out though, I recommend taking a few weeks to focus on this next part rather than intensity and progression just yet. They won't be wasted weeks either. You'll also be building a habit of going to the gym. Priority 3 is good technique/form. Balance, mobility, and coordination always come before size and strength. Having good form will make sure you are hitting the right muscles with a good range of motion and ensure you have longevity in the lifting game. Once you get solid form is when you should start training intensely and progressively. Priority 4 is sufficient volume and frequency. I suggest training every muscle group at least 2 times per week in your routine and getting at least 6 to 12 intense sets per muscle group per week. As you get more experience, you might need more sets than this, but 6 to 12 sets will be plenty. I suggest starting with 6 sets and working your way up by adding a set per week. If you can feel you can handle the volume. Priority 5 is good exercise selection. I suggest having 80% compound movement and 20% isolation movements for each workout. Start with your heaviest lifts and work your way down. Barbell lifts work best here as they hit many muscle groups very well. Alright, those are all the most important training principles for muscle and strength building. So you know how to diet and train if you're skinny fat, but how do you know if you're genuinely skinny fat? How skinny fat is classified matters a ton, since I don't want to accidentally send somebody with a mid overweight or above BMI to bulk and turn into the bloat god. There is no strict classification though. Everyone lies on the spectrum. Here are some things that I would say classify a skinny fat person. If you have skinny limbs, skinny wrists, skinny calves, etc. Most skinny fat people don't actually have that much fat, but are fooled into thinking they do because they hold the fat they do have in their belly and love handles. It's similar to how thick girls can look fit with a small waist, but actually be more overweight than a girl who just happens to hold most of her fat in her belly. Another thing would be if you look skinny in clothes but fat without them. And lastly, if your BMI is at the upper range of normal weight or within 1 point of overweight. If you meet this criteria, then you're good to consider yourself skinny fat and go on a bulk. If not, however, and you find yourself to be actually overweight or obese, then that's where I advise trying either a cut or a recomp. I won't go into depth, but they have a similar diet to the bulk, just cleaner foods. In a cut, instead of a calorie surplus, you eat in a calorie deficit, which should be 500 to 700 calories. Aim to lose 1 to 2 pounds of body weight per week. In a recomp, instead of a calorie surplus or deficit, you eat around maintenance. You'll get a minor calorie deficit from exercise. Doing either of these will allow you to build muscle at a moderate pace while losing fat, especially as a beginner. But the prerequisite to this is that you have enough fat on your body in the first place, which skinny fat people do not have. You won't be able to pull this off nearly as well after a number of months of gaining lifting experience, simply because muscle adaptations start coming slower and require more fuel/stimulus. So you will have to switch to bulking and cutting cycles, or you can also just stick to bulking or cutting from the get-go. You'll end up at the same destination regardless, so take the path you know will guarantee to get you there. I touched on progression being the most important thing for muscle growth, but I didn't explain how to exactly go about it. So here I will cover 2 basic progressions for getting stronger, which will work especially if you're a beginner. 1. Rep ranges. This is usually shown as start reps to end reps, so like 8 to 10, 8 to 12, 5 to 10, etc. The idea is that you pick a weight for an exercise, which you can only do for the start reps of the rep range, like starting with 8 reps of 8 to 12. Then every following training session for that exercise, you try to do 1 more rep until you can do the end reps of that range. Once you can perform 12 reps on the first 2 sets, the next step is to just add 5 to 10 pounds so you are only able to do the start reps. And now you just have to repeat this cycle over and over. It's that simple. 2. Linear progression. This is shown as just 1 rep rather than a range. Choose a weight you can do for the target reps. Let's say 5 reps, Every following session for that exercise, you simply just add 5 pounds and do it for the target reps, and repeat. Use linear progression only for compound barbell lifts like the squat, bench, and deadlift, since you can get stronger consistently enough to warrant this faster progression. For all other exercises, use the rep range progression. To accurately track progression, you have to keep a logbook of your workouts though, like a document of the way you lifted, the number of reps, and number of sets for each exercise you do. No matter how megamind or heavy you are, you cannot remember all the weights and reps.